Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome back to another match preview. It's Watford versus Barnsley this time at Vicarage Road. The games are coming thick and fast at the moment. I think at the Huddersfield game, it's 5 games in 15 days for Watford, something crazy like that. So that busy Christmas kind of fixture schedule has continued to January, and we're going to be looking ahead to the Barnsley game. We're on the back of the 2-0 win against Huddersfield. Of course, we're joined by Sam and Elliot for this one. Guys, how are you doing before we get into the preview? Sam, we'll kick it off with you. Before we went on air, you were saying about Xisco, you love the little reaction they put from the bench on the Watford YouTube channel. You must have been buzzing after the win at the weekend.
Yeah, I was so happy. It's just we showed so much character, I thought. I said it in the player ratings that while it wasn't the best performance, and I don't think anyone can walk away and say it was like, unbelievable. But we showed so much character, I thought, to break down that Huddersfield side. And I thought that kind of stemmed from Xisco, which is why I think that video was so good when it came out. Because you could just see the positive, the positive energy he brings to the team. And I kind of feel like these players to kind of get along with the manager has to kind of be a personal relationship, like they had with Javi, for example, rather than someone like Ivic or even perhaps Pearson, who kind of distances themselves a bit more from the team. So, I just think Munoz, we're going in really, really good direction with him. Four games so far, 2 wins, 2 losses. And the 2 wins have been really good wins in my eyes. But tomorrow night is absolutely huge. I think it's the biggest game of the season so far.
Yeah, I think that's fair, isn't it, Elliot? I mean, it's a huge game tomorrow. Barnsley are a decent side, and we saw how difficult they were at Oakwell in the reverse fixture. I mean, it was an absolute worldie from Alex Moe, which we couldn't do a lot about. I mean, there were some people saying we should have pressed him a little bit quicker, but I think the overall performance that day was not great, in all honesty. I remember I was on Hive Live for that one, and I was thinking of positives to five. There wasn't a lot. How big is tomorrow's game, Elliot, in terms of the kind of the season as a whole for Watford?
Well, I think a win would probably separate us from a couple of the teams lower down in the playoffs and fighting for the playoffs, because I know Barnsley have struggled a bit against the teams at the upper end of the table. They lost to Swansea the other day. So if we can win, we can stake our claim as one of the big clubs in the league. And it's a really tough game against the side that will probably want to turn things around, because they weren't quite right against Swansea.
Yeah, I think we'll discuss the Barnsley game and the Huddersfield game in a bit more detail. Before we do get into it, guys, a bit of housekeeping. If you do enjoy the video, please do leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to WD18. As you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of all our little screens, we've got our Twitter handles. So make sure you go over to Twitter and give us a follow, and follow Sam and Elliot, who do some fantastic content for us on WD18. Sam, just wanted to ask you about the Huddersfield game a little bit more. It was a weird one, wasn't it? Because despite us all, obviously, we're delighted that Watford have won the game, I got the impression a lot of people were maybe a little bit negative about the first half performance in particular, where we didn't play great. And then the second half, we picked it up after the Tom Cleverley goal. For you, was that Tom Cleverley goal the moment where we actually played our stuff and we were a bit more comfortable on the ball, and just actually having a bit more passes of play? Because before that point, we just looked a little bit nervous, in all honesty, even though it was a rotated Huddersfield team.
Yeah, I feel like with this Watford team, we have to get the first goal if we're going to go on and make any impact in the game. I think pretty much Stoke is the only game I can think of off the top of my head where we've gone 1-0 down and come back to, get something in the game. So it's really important just for the confidence of this Watford side in general to get something, because I think we are better when we play on the front foot, and we haven't seen that enough this season. But in terms of the Huddersfield game as a kind of an isolated incident, if you want, you have a lot of different sorts of teams and games in the Championship. We have to grind out different sorts of results. And for me, that's why I was so happy with it, because while the first half was dreadful, and perhaps another team, maybe even Barnsley tomorrow night, if we play like that, we could find ourselves 1 or 2-0 down at half-time. But the fact we came back with the character after half-time and had the determination just showed, how far this Watford team are coming under Munoz. And it's by no means the finished product as seen in the first half, and perhaps we do need a convincing win soon to kind of convince ourselves that we are doing quite well. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good positive steps.
Yeah, not to whip out the cliches, Elliot, but it kind of was a game of two halves in terms of Watford's performance. Because first half going forward, we were just bypassing the midfield, weren't we? It was just loads of aimless long balls. And in the second half, when we got that goal, as Sam mentioned, I don't know, it just seemed to kind of kick us up a couple of gears. And I think that's been the theme of this season, where, we'll start maybe in first gear, but it takes us a goal to really shift up a couple of gears. And again, on Saturday, how important was that Tom Cleverley moment? Because I think Tom, he gets a lot of stick sometimes, I think, for maybe his ability, but one thing we can't question is his work rate and his tenacity. And I think that goal pretty much summed up Tom Cleverley during his time at Watford.
Yeah, it did. I was quite critical of Cleverley's first half. I thought him and Chalobah, like you say, were bypassed. They didn't really get much to the attackers. But you can see in his tenacity and his energy that he does chase that ball and he does go for it. And ultimately, the game turns on its head after one little chance, not even really a chance. It was a half chance. I was just really happy to see him keep fighting for the ball, win the ball, and slide it in quite bizarre fashion. But yeah, I think what I was most pleased about, and I mentioned this on my Twitter after the game, was that once we got 1-0 up, we didn't sit back like we have done in the past. We didn't sit deep. Something we did under Ivic a lot was just give up. Well, not necessarily give up, but go on the defensive. Instead, we kept fighting. We knew the second goal was important, and then we get it not too long later. And I think that demonstrated our maturity and how we've improved under Munoz.
Yeah, it was a big moment, wasn't it, Cleverley? And actually, the second goal, Sam, I mean, it just shows when there's a bit more confidence in this Watford team, the patterns of play we can put together. I mean, I remember you tweeting about it. Pedro switch a play to the right-hand side. Kiko with an absolutely orgasmic bit of football down the right. Knocked it past the full-back. Across it came, and Zhao was at the back post. And that movement, Sam, oh my God, we've been crying out for it for so long, haven't we? We mentioned it in the previews.
So long. I mean, people say, Pedro's too young to start every week or is not as a natural position to play up front. But that is what we've been crying out for so long. Just a striker to make those movements. This isn't anything against Troy or Andre, as a lot of, people could interpret this. But purely on the positive side for Zhao, that is exactly what we need. Just someone with the movement. He's kind of, I find with Zhao, there's an arrogance about him. Do you know, with that like young kind of raw attitude that he brings to the team? We saw with his goal at Derby away, sometimes the way he carries the ball with him, and there's just a young arrogance in there. And I feel like it's so good to have in this Watford team. And that kind of, I think, really, it's kind of shown further with his argument with Ismaila Sarr at the end of the game, because that, they're both so hungry to score goals. And I think that's what happens when you want to play on the front foot and not sit back there. Everyone wants to get involved. Everyone wants to score goals. Obviously, we don't know exactly what happened, but I think you can interpret that in such a positive way. Everyone's hungry.
Yeah, Rudy agreed with you, Sammy, in the comments. He said he thought Pedro did well against Huddersfield on Saturday. And then Eddie mentioned just in the live chat, what is going on between Pedro and Sarr? It seems Sarr's been throwing constant strops and his performances hasn't been up there. Do you think he's trying to force a move away? Elliot, we'll put that one to you. That's a tough one, by the way.
Not an easy question. Yeah.
I'm throwing you under the bus there, mate.
And I have to make it clear, this is a complete guess, an educated guess, but a complete guess. I don't think he's going to move this window. I don't think he'll be going anywhere this month. I can see with the strops, as you put it, perhaps he's not at his happiest. I think he needs a bit more guidance, a bit more coaching. And we know the quality is there. He just needs to live up to his potential a little bit more. I think it was nothing really with him and João Pedro. I think it was probably a bit of frustration. Both players are very hungry, very attacking players, and they probably were desperate to get that last chance at the end of the game, which is a positive, because at 2-0, I think it's a very good thing that the players still want to go and get that third goal. So I think we should probably look at it as a positive that they stropped at the end of the game, rather than as a negative that there's a little brawl between the two.
I think that's a very good answer, Elliot, and I apologise for throwing you under the bus in that question. It was interesting, wasn't it? Because 5 Live reported it at full time, and they said Sarr and Zhao had a row on the pitch after the game. Actually, there was an incident in the game where basically Pedro jogged up to Sarr, I think, pushed Sarr, and then did it again at full time. And then even when you watch the clip on the Cisco bench cam, you can see Sarr sprinting down the tunnel at full time. So clearly there was maybe a little bit of afters. And Deeney was kind of acting as peacemaker. I actually quite like it, Sam. I like the fact there's a bit of passion, there's a bit of hunger, there's a little bit of an edge to this Watford team, because I don't think we've seen that a lot this season.
It sounds like the most Watford story possible, where players going up against each other. But I saw a tweet about this, but I kind of want to bring it. I'll bring it back to last season. I don't know if you remember when Son and Lloris for Tottenham started arguing, and you saw on the documentary after Mourinho came out and said that they were so hungry to demand more from each other. And I think that's what we need to see from this Watford team, because there's been questions there whether who wants to be here. People are just waiting to see out their retirement fee kind of thing. And the fact that we got these young, hungry players who are so desperate to get back in the Premier League, because let's not lie, it's an attractive prospect and it's arguably one of the biggest reasons why they joined Watford. Zinkernagel even said it himself that I'm here because I want to play in the Premier League. So, the desire to get back in the Premier League is massive. So we can only see it as a positive.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Sam. It's one of those incidents which, on the surface, I think the way it was reported was it was a massive issue, but in reality, I think it's quite good to see a bit of an edge, especially in the modern game. You don't see it as much, I don't think. So yeah, it's an interesting one. So we'll see what happens if both those guys start tomorrow.
Yeah, I reckon it's pretty common as well. We just don't really see it on the pitch as much. Like, I reckon in the dressing room, a lot of the time, people are. I mean, I'd say it's even wrong to say digging each other out. It's just demanding more of each other. So I reckon we see it more and more. But perhaps on the pitch where there was an opportunity, perhaps to get more goals, and another team perhaps would have scored more. Perhaps that's just where the frustration came from. Just
to maybe chuck out a counter argument to that, Sam. Or actually, I'll put this to you, Elliot. Sorry, this is another difficult one on your live debut. But what they mentioned on the radio commentary, which I listened back to after the game, was João was getting in these really good positions in these pockets just in front of the back four, which he's very good at, to be fair. I think Derby's the perfect example where he drifts out and comes in, and obviously he's got the ability to score those brilliant goals. And Sarr would kind of had his head down on the right-hand side, was ignoring João in the middle, and just had blinkers on and wasn't looking at João. Is that a particular concern for you, that there's a little bit of maybe... You need to have an element of selfishness, of course, as an attacker, but that kind of, I'm going to ignore João, even though he's getting great positions, even though he probably should be getting the ball. Is that a concern to you, or do you think it's just a little bit of an ego between the two players?
It will be something that changes in time as they gel a bit more, because if you think about it, they haven't really played much together so far during their times at Watford. I think Sarr is naturally a very wide player. I know that's very obvious to say as a right winger, but he's not one that will cut inside as much. He wants to bomb down the right flank. And I think it's probably in his maturity. I think it was something that he'll grow to change. And I think soon there'll be a bit more of a connection, because he needs to. If João Pedro is going to front, he needs to be and the crosses into him.
Yeah, that's a great point. Zach just put a great comment in the chat where he says, just on Munoz, I think Munoz is fantastic. Love the extra touch of how he's communicative with the fans on social media, and clearly just wants the passion from the players. Sam, you were absolutely in awe of Cisco in that video. I tell you what I loved about it was the whistle from the assistant on the sideline. It was like he was herding these sheep.
Yeah, no, I think though that they must be related, because I don't know if you've seen him on social media, but he's also got the surname Munoz. So I mean, it's a very Spanish name. So I don't know, there might be a connection there, but evidently, I mean, I said it earlier, these players need someone who they can connect with kind of on a more personal level. And the fact that Munoz has only just retired as well is also a really good indicator of that. And, he just says it here, but I love the fact Munoz on the morning of the game and the night before he's going for his social media speaking to fans. And,
quality, innit? It's class.
Yeah, class.
That is quality. I'll tell you what, we'll move it on to the Barnsley game. I think we've had a few technical difficulties with Elliot's connection. We might have to kick him out if it continues. Sam, we want to get. Oh no, he's back.
No, he's back.
Let us know your comments as well. By the way, in the comment section, we'll get to them at the end of the video. We'll move on to an interesting quote from Kiko today, and he mentioned it, and it was received quite a good reaction from Watford fans, where Kiko basically said, "Personally, I'm really focused on Watford. My season is here, so I'm really focused on promotion, on the goal of the team. So I don't really care about what's being said about transfers." How encouraging is that for you, Sam? Hearing that from one of our best performers this season.
Yeah, I love Kiko to bits. I think people know I'm a massive, massive fan of him. I always have been, even when he got, he's back. Even when he he got criticised a bit last year when his performances dropped off. I think this season he's really stepped up, and he seems to be one of those players who I don't think he would have complained if he stayed or went last season, but he just seems to be happy playing his football out of Vicarage Road. He seems to have a certain confidence about him. He's a more experienced head in the dressing room. And I also kind of feel like he thrives off that competition with Jeremy and Ngakia at the right back spot, because he hasn't really had that, because it was always him and Daryl Yama, and I can't remember when Yama ever actually played a game for us after that Chelsea 4-1. Yeah, but I think he really does, because we got two. I mean, I said this to someone else, but if we had the competition up front than we did at the back with the centre back positions and the full backs, I mean, we would be destroying this league. And unfortunately, that's not the reality, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, Sam, just to kind of elaborate on that, I think it was Dom Baker on Twitter made a brilliant point that we've massively benefited from Troost-Ekong, Wilmot and Sarr coming into the team without last season's relegation looming over them. Got to do that in other areas where we can, I think. I mean, it's unlikely that that's going to happen in January, this January, but I think certainly if we're going to, obviously it depends if we're in the Championship next season, but it seems like we do need a little bit of an overhaul with this squad. I know we've mentioned it quite a few times, but as you mentioned, Sam, the performances from the back line this season have been so good, it does make you question whether that relegation hangover has maybe played a part. Is that maybe too far-fetched to suggest?
I wouldn't say it's too far-fetched. I just think generally that, there's a reason that certain players are in the Championship, and there's a reason why we got relegated from the Premier League. And, if we're putting it bluntly, it's because we weren't good enough last season. We weren't good enough, as soon as the FA Cup final finished, we just weren't good enough as a football club. And there's a reason why we're in the Championship. And it's about improving and upgrading and getting these players who work in the Championship, who fit this league. And I think that's kind of what perhaps, clubs like Brentford are doing really well. Clubs like Norwich, they've got good Championship sides. And, that's sort of an area that, particularly in the forward areas, that we really need to sort out.
Good point. I think that's a very good point. Elliot, before you cut out, and we were just talking about Kiko, who, to be honest with you, I've started a little bit of an obsession over. I mean, I love the bloke. Absolute legend. He said, obviously, he's really focused on Watford. He's focused on Watford this season, basically ruling out a move in January, unless he does a Fabian Delph, like he did at Aston Villa. How encouraging is that for you? Sam said, obviously, it's a big boost for us, but for you, and what have you made of Kiko this season? Because I said he's been one of the best performers this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's arguably been the player of the season. I don't know who else you could really say has performed at a better level than him. I think, like you say, the competition with Jeremy Ngakia is important. Dariyama was out more than he was fit. And I think even Kiko was out for a period at the start of the season, not for any injury reason, but just because Jeremy Ngakia was performing to such a high standard. So I think it's great to have the competition between them. It's clear that he cares a lot about the club. I think he very easily could have gone in the summer and probably, I guess from a personal perspective, he probably should have done, given our situation in the Championship. But I'm so glad he stayed, because it's clear the passion he has. It's clear that he's got the ability as well, which I think is, if you've got that combo, then you'll thrive at Watford 100%. Yeah,
I think we just had a comment as I put up on the screen, pretty much echoing what you said there, Elliot. I'll tell you what, we'll move on from Kiko, move to the Barnsley game. We touched on the Huddersfield game. Sam, you mentioned how big this game is in our season. More importantly, how confident are you that we can get a win from this game? Because it's all well and good us saying it is a big game, because absolutely it is. I mean, Barnsley, we've mentioned how many times, have been really good under Valerie and Ismail this season. They've got players that can hurt us, in particular Alex Mowat. I think Matty James, Corley Woodrow up front. They've got some seriously good Championship players. How confident are you that we can get back-to-back wins? Because I can't remember the last time we did get back-to-back wins in the Championship. Let me check, actually.
We haven't actually won 3 in a row yet this season, which is really concerning.
Last time. Yeah, you're right, mate. And the last time we got back-to-back was Rotherham and then Birmingham.
Yeah, so, and I mean, neither of them were great performances. Yeah, no, I feel like we have to back ourselves simply because of I think by far we've got the best home record in the league. Vicarage Road has become a fortress. Teams are scared. I don't know about scared, but teams kind of fear coming to us because they know about our home record, and also because of Barnsley's record against the top 6. I mean, sorry. We mentioned that they weren't that great against Swansea the other day. I thought Swansea kind of had it really easy against them. It really wasn't like the Barnsley that I watched this season under their last 2 managers even, where they got a clear philosophy in their club, and we know they've got the players that can hurt us. They beat us earlier in the season when we were arguably at one of our lowest points. So it's going to be a dangerous game. I think that's the best way of summarising it.
Elliot, just looking on the approach that Barnsley are going to adopt, I think we can read into maybe a little bit in terms of the way they approached the Oakwell. It was very, I think they knew that we were going to have a lot of the ball, and I think that'll probably be the same approach at home, particularly because Watford do like to dominate the ball. And the Barnsley game showed that they are very effective on the counter attack. Who do we? I know you're so much about the Championship. Who do we need to look out for from this Barnsley team? And the way they set up and Valerie and Ismail, where can they hurt us?
I think Corley Woodrow is the obvious threat. He's the striker. He's the one that will he'll be the furthest forward, and he's a bit of a poacher at times. He's not necessarily a prolific goal scorer. I think he's only scored 3 from open play this season, but I think he's the sort of player that could just score the goal that would turn the tie. Alex Mowatt, of course, the captain. I'd love to know what would happen in that game at Oakwell if he hadn't have got the goal so early on. I'd love to see the dynamic of them pressing versus our sort of sturdy defensive football as it was under Ivic. And at the back, they've got Michael Hellick, who has scored, I think, more than anyone apart from Woodrow and Mowatt. And I think at corners, he's a real threat as well. So we've got to look out for that. I know at corners, we've been okay defensively since Munoz has come in. We weren't great under Ivic at defending set pieces. So it's going to be a real test of how we've improved when he comes into the box of corners.
Yeah, it does feel like set pieces are going to be definitely an area we've got to look out for. In terms of the way Watford set up, Elliot, Caroline just put a comment in the chat which says, do you think we will stick with a 4-4-2 formation tomorrow? I think I've called for maybe a switch to a 4-2-3-1, and I would like to maybe see Zinkernagel in behind the striker, even if it just get him in the team for me anyway. I think I'm convinced already about Zinkernagel, but do you think we'll continue with the 4-4-2, as Caroline asked?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we'll stick with it. I guess it depends with Zinkernagel and Hughes coming back. Maybe he'll want to change things, because I don't see any other reason why they wouldn't start on Saturday if they're not going to start tomorrow. So I would say they'll be starting tomorrow. I think it will have to be a 4-4-2. I think Zinkernagel will probably be on the left instead of Semmer, although he could go on the right instead of Sarr, because Sarr has played quite a lot recently. But formation-wise, I don't see anything changing for a little while, because I guess after a win, there's no reason to change it. As much as we might see problems with it, I think I'd be very impressed if he changed it, to be honest, because I think it shows that he wants to keep going up and up and up rather than sticking with where we are.
Yeah, that's an interesting dilemma, isn't it, Sam, for Xisco Munoz? Because, I think some sections of supporters want to see Hughesy back in. I'm probably one of them, because I just think he offers a calmness into the midfield, particularly. Who he'd come in for is obviously the dilemma. But if he does come in, are you very much the mindset, if we won a game, you stick with it, you try to build a bit of consistency with the lineup? Or do we need to make a couple of changes in certain positions? For example, Hughesy in the middle. For example, Zinkernagel.
Yeah, I think, though, I said it right at the start, that while it was in the end, in my eyes, it was a really good grinding performance. It wasn't the best performance by any stretch of the imagination. And teams like Barnsley, as I said, could punish us quite easily, particularly in this league. And we know the quality that Will Hughes has, and for me, he has to come in. Whether that's for Chalobah, my gut feeling would be for Cleverley, simply because of did he play 90 minutes the other day? I don't think he did he? And Garner came on for him.
I think he came off just to... Yeah, he did. I think it was like the 85th minute.
So he played a lot he played a lot during the Huddersfield game, and particularly with him aging as a player. And I think Munoz did say that there is going to be a lot of squad rotation. We've got so many games coming up, and I said this as well. I really wouldn't be surprised if we see James Garner tomorrow night because of the hamstring injury that Chalobah had. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's Garner and Hughes tomorrow night. Also, wouldn't be surprised if João Pedro comes out and we see Deeney and Gray up front together again. But I do think Zinkernagel and Hughes will come in tomorrow night. Yeah,
I'd like to see Hughesy come in. But I think we've got to manage the game as well, haven't we, Elliot? Because, as I said, I think it was 5 games in 15 days from the Huddersfield game. So, we've got a game on Tuesday. We then got a game on Friday night as well. Then a game on Tuesday. The fixture schedule is absolutely crazy in the next couple of weeks. How important is it? It's a pretty obvious question, but just in terms of managing the kind of the workload of some of these players, because Sam makes a really good point about, the likes of Chalobah, who have struggled with their injuries over the years. How is it Is it easy? Is it as easy as just changing it, or is it just making a couple of alterations, keeping the main team the same? If you know what I mean. So not making absolute wild scale changes, but just maybe the odd player.
Yeah, it was something I asked Chisco about last week, and he didn't seem to regard it as a problem. He seemed to sort of dismiss it, which was, I guess, if it works, then that's fantastic. But if not, I'd maybe question it. I think it has to be tweaks here and there. We know from earlier on the season when it was just a barrage of game after game after game that there are players that can just play non-stop. Ken Semmer played what felt like about 15 games in a row just without any break, and I don't know how he did it. But yeah, there'll have to be changes. We've got Stipe Peritza coming back soon. I think he probably could be on the bench tomorrow evening because we thought he could be on the bench on Saturday and he wasn't. We could even look at some of the players like Hungo and Dan Phillips who impressed when they came on against Manchester United. They could be little depth options, probably not to start, but to come off the bench. And yeah, just little tweaks here and there, even if it's something like Ngakia for Kiko, which is fairly like for like, or like you say, Garner coming in. I know Garner's not really impressed this season as much as we'd have hoped, but maybe we could see the best of him under Xisco. So I think it remains to be seen with him. And yeah, just little tweaks here and there would be great for tomorrow night.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. I think that's probably the way to go forward and kind of manage the fixture schedule at the moment. We've got a couple of comments in the live chat. Same team, but one striker, Pedro, Pedro for Dini and Zinkernagel. A bit of a weird spelling, but I think we all know Zinkernagel. Shindog says Zink, which is Zinkernagel's nickname now, would probably be an upgrade on Sarr, not in terms of talent, but as a team player, maybe. We're going to throw this one to Sam.
I don't know enough about Zinkernagel, to be honest. Can we all know, like, as a fan base, agree? Can we not have Zink as his nickname? Because I much preferred PZ7.
Yeah,
I really like that.
I like that.
Yeah, like JP10, PZ7. It works really well. I don't think we can really question Sarr's attitude because he is staying here, and I don't think for him it's a question of effort. I think under Ivic he was kind of being held back a bit, and I think now he's perhaps struggling to adjust to Munoz's style of play. You have to remember he's a young player, so you know he's adjusting. So it remains to be seen with Zinkernagel. I mean, Jacob said he's sold on him already. I think he does look really good from the couple of touches he's had.
Mate, I've seen the YouTube compilations, and he's the next Ronaldo. Go on, mate. Go on.
Yeah, the most Watford welcome is that within 2 minutes of coming on, his shirt was ripped in half. Like, yeah.
Go on, mate. I'll tell you what about Zinkernagel. It is early days. We've seen a game against Manchester United. I think what I took a massive encouragement from that game was he got thrown into a game like that away at Old Trafford. I know it was a rotating Manchester United team. He didn't look out of place. He was arguably one of our best players. He had a great first touch. And for me, and just technically he looked like a good player. And he was playing on the left-hand side. And someone made this a really good point. You know, his goal contributions and assists last season, which is like some incredible figures at Boda and Glimpse, he played consistently on the right-hand side. Elliot, for you, I asked this question, I think, to Watford Analytics on Twitter. Is it a problem that with Sarr at the club, it's unlikely that we're actually going to see Zinkernagel on the right-hand side, while if both are fit, which they're more often than not. And you did your research about Zinkernagel. You know how effective he can be from that position. Is it a problem for you that it's unlikely we're going to see him from that position with Sarr still at the club?
Well, an interesting thing could be that we could see Sarr on the left. I personally don't think it could work, but he did play there under Ren and did succeed. It doesn't really make sense to me given his left foot isn't the strongest, but I guess if he's playing a different kind of style and he's cutting in, then that could work. But yeah, like you say, with Zinkernagel and Sarr maybe being a problem, I can see that causing problems for us selection-wise. Perhaps Zinkernagel was brought in to be behind the striker. I can't imagine the club would just pounce on Zinkernagel without thinking of how he fits into the system. I think he could do well on the left. I think that was his first game on the left in over a year. So, but it didn't look like it. He looked really good. He's inherited Delafeu's number 7. I already think he's the most technical player we've seen since him, and I think he'll inherit that perfectly. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm fine with him on the left because he performed against Manchester United. I would like to see him on the right at some point, but if we get Zinkernagel on the left and Sarr on the right, that's a Premier League duo of wingers. Yeah,
very true. That's a great point. I tell you what, we've got a couple more questions just to wrap up the preview. We've got one from W13 Sam, which says, "What are all of your opinions on Andre Gray?" Do you want to answer
it? Look, I kind of feel sorry for Andre. I kind of feel sorry for Andre. I feel like a lot of the time he was simply a scapegoat, but I kind of feel now after he's broken the lockdown twice. Generally, I know perhaps I don't know whether he has attitude problems, but he just doesn't really seem up for it. He does run a lot, in all fairness to him. He gets in good positions, but if we want to be challenging to go up, he's not the right man to have up front. I'm sorry, same as Troy Deeney. Neither of them are the right men to have up front, and we really need upgrades on them. I'll leave it there because I don't want to make it like an anti-Gray
of course,
kind of thing. But yeah.
Interesting one here from Miles Elliot. Are we concerned? This is probably not even really related to the game tomorrow, but are we concerned of the contracts expiring in the summer? Kiko, Kabasele, Deeney. Their all contracts are running out from what he says. I think Kiko actually got offered a new deal, and Kabasele. I think Deeney might be running out potentially.
We're not going to see Cucho. We're never going to see Cucho in a Watford shirt. I think
we probably need to come to terms with that. I mean, we're not in. This is not in the know information, but it's unlikely that's going to happen. I think. Will we try to sell this window? Okay, maybe just shortening that, Miles. Thank you for your question. Could you see any outgoings this window, Elliot? I think Sarr's probably the one there's going to be an offer coming at some point. I think it's almost inevitable. We saw it at the end of the summer window. I think Palace chucked in a 20 million bid, which was laughed off by Gino and co. I think Liverpool were interested. There was another team that I read that were interested as well. But can you see any players leaving? I feel like every preview there's transfer gossip, but can you see any outgoings this window?
No, I think Cucho's the only one that could go, and that would make sense. He's doing well at Getafe, he fits well with their system, and he's been out with suspension and injury past few games, so maybe they wouldn't be quick to jump the gun just yet. But if he proves himself in the next couple of games, Getafe might try and get him on a permanent. No other team would go for him, in my opinion. Apart from him, no, I don't think anyone will leave. I don't actually think Cucho will go either, for what it's worth. But no outgoings this window, I'd say.
Sam, are you the same with the outgoings? Can you see anyone going? I'll tell you what, Sam, just a scenario. If a bid comes in of around, let's say, 30 million for Sarr, do you take it?
Yeah, I think so. In case his valuation drops, I mean, even more as it is. I think it would only be with the guarantee of reinvestment, which I don't think in the nature of the world at the moment and in the transfer window that we would see that money reinvested as of yet. If Sarr does go anywhere, I mean, I think West Ham apparently put in an approach this window or showed some interest.
They're interested, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's already gone out the window. I can't really see him fitting into a David Moyes side as well. I think he would hold out for a Liverpool move or a Man United move, but yeah, I can't see anyone of note perhaps leaving this window. Yeah, maybe Glenn Murray's loan would be terminated, but again,
that's a really good point, Sam. Actually, I remember before we did when we went live today, I was going to ask something on Glenn Murray, and surely he should be. Elliot, I'll chuck it to you. Do you think he should be given an opportunity again? Because I'm not saying he's the answer to all of our problems at the moment in the final third, but it's something a bit different to what we've seen before. He's had 5 games, and I think, to be fair, if that Wickham effort had got in, I think the narrative would have changed with Glenn Murray, because it would have been like, well, he's come on and got us a goal. Do you think it's a bit premature to get rid of him, or would you give him another opportunity? Say if you were Xisco, this is very hypothetical, but say if you were Xisco.
Well, putting aside the fact that I think there must be something going on behind the scenes with him, because he's not been in the squad for months. There's got to be something going on there. But aside from that, just focusing on him, ability-wise, I would keep him around. If he had no say in the matter, that is, because I'm sure he'd love to play regular football. I'd keep him around. With the barrage of games coming up, it's going to be absolutely relentless. Not just now, but there are other periods later on in the season. I think it's worth keeping him as cover. We know Paritza's been out 3 times for various reasons. It might have even been 4. So we don't know what the striker scenario is going to be. If Gray or Deeney picks up an injury, then Gray's much higher up on the pecking order. So I'd keep him around as cover. But like I say, I don't think he'll want to be kept around as cover. He'll probably want to go somewhere else and start.
Yeah, I think there was interest, wasn't there, from QPR, but they ended up getting Charlie Austin and buying him in. Is it on loan or is it permanent, that deal?
I think it's on loan.
On loan. So it was obviously between Charlie Austin and Glenn, and they've opted for Charlie Austin. tried and tested at QPR. Got a couple more comments before we wrap it up. Thank you to everyone who's watching at the moment. 46 of you, which is brilliant. And if you're watching this back on the YouTube channel, please do leave a like. And if you're watching now, please do leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll be back for a match reaction tomorrow if the guys are available for the Barnsley game. Hopefully after the Watford win anyway. We've got a couple more comments from you guys. Zach says, thanks, guys, for doing this preview. Cheers, everyone, even though I just got COVID. Thank you very much for the comment, Zach, and wishing you a speedy recovery. We've got another comment here about the lineup tomorrow. João Pedro up top, Semmer on the left, Sarr on the right, Zinchenko as attacking midfield. I'd imagine that would be, what, in a 4-2-3-1? I mean, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? I guess.
Yeah, it looks like it would be a 4-2-3-1. Yeah, I mean, I think Adam Leventhal in his article, he was like my desired 11 kind of thing. I think this was kind of what he put for it. I can't exactly remember, but I think that would be really, really good. A lot of pace in there, a lot of movement, and I don't think the 4-4-2 is that bad. I know a lot of people on social media criticise it, but I think it does suit this Watford side relatively well.
Elliot, any further thoughts on that one?
I think you've been a real supporter of that, Jacob, having Zinchenko as the attacking mid. Yeah, why not? We've got so many games coming up. We might as well try it one week, maybe against a weaker side. I don't see how any of them would struggle in that system. I think Zinchenko could be great in the middle. So, yeah, give it a go. Why not?
I'll tell you what, Elliot, I might change my bio to 4-2-3-1 just to advocate even further. We got a comment from Frankie Holiday, actually. Paritza screams, hey ho.
Do you know, my first time I remember being like properly angry as a Watford fan, it was the 2013 playoff final when we lost 1-0 to Palace and Vidra got injured at half time and we had Forestieri and Gecko on the bench and they brought on Gecko. I was so angry.
I have to admit, it's similar body kind of. It's a similar physique. He's got, I'm going to say body stature, similar physique to Paritza, actually. I have to admit, when I first saw him, it reminded me of Hey-Ho. But I think Frankie's got a fair shout there. Serious question from Freddie. The questions are rolling in. Thank you very much for getting involved, guys. We really do appreciate it. Serious question. Andre Gray or Isaac's success? Elliot.
Oh, me again. Okay. I'd have to, if I was to be really diplomatic, I'd say I have to see more of Isaac's success because I don't think we've seen him get an extended run of games for about 4 managers and about a year. So just based on their qualities, Isaac's success, why not? Yeah, let's give Isaac's success a go. If he's ever fit
I'll tell you
again.
What, I would really like to see Isaac get given a go. I know Sam,
Yeah, why not?
Sam is not. Sam's rolling his eyes at the top right corner.
Yeah, it's just a reflection on how bad the recruitment's been. The fact that he's still here and
strap yourselves in, lads. The recruitment run.
Sorry, we say it over and over again. Some of our previous videos.
Against Coventry, he got 2 assists. Against Coventry, he had a fantastic game. He got 2 assists. I think it felt like he was at centre mid, but I think he was on the left or the right. But he kept dropping deep and he kept playing these fantastic through balls. Yeah, why not? Let's just stick him back in. It's worth a try.
I have to say, Isaac's been out for quite a while, and to be fair, I thought he was going to leave in the summer. But the fact he's here, and actually we're not doing a lot in the final third at the moment, I don't see the problem with just chucking him in there. It's something a little bit different because it's not working at the moment.
They can't do much worse than what we've got. That's my argument about Glenn Murray as well. But looking back on Isaac's success, do you remember that Middlesbrough away game when Hollebass scored an absolute screamer? And success was brilliant that day, and we were like, "Wow, we got someone special on our hands here." And then he kind of just went off the scene for another 4 or 5 years, and here we are now. But I really hope he can prove me wrong, and I'll be the first one to admit it if or hopefully when he does prove me wrong. So, good luck, Isaac, I suppose.
I thought I was just about to prepare myself for a 5-minute Sam Uko rant on the recruitment of Watford Football Club. It didn't happen. I'll tell you what, we got a final comment from Rudy. It says, I think Kiko's definitely been our player of the season so far. Definitely from my perspective. Frankie just finally says, save success for Bournemouth always turns up versus them. 2016, 17 under Mazzari when he had that. I mean, it was a brilliant header. Ran across the front. It was a free kick. I think Hollebass whipped in. He's just bang. Isaac, lovely.
I think it was that game as well. Troy tried to do a scorpion kick and he just missed the ball completely. I can't remember. Yeah.
I tell you what, we've got lots of nice comments from these guys. Well done, lads. Great discussion. Holly Jones, great discussion. Really informed as well. Thank you very much to everyone who's watched there. I think that's where we're going to wrap up the Barnsley preview. If you haven't left a like on the video and you did enjoy them, please do. It really does help us. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Follow the guys' socials. I think it's in the bottom left. Is it? Yeah, bottom left. It's straight. It's this new software. I'm trying to work out which way it is. Just there. And give the guys a follow. We'll be back tomorrow for the same format, a match reaction after the Barnsley game. Thank you to everyone who got involved today. We really do appreciate the comments. And Comedy Hornets. Cheers, guys.